Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the April 29th work session that was called to discuss the River Road issue. Dennis has asked that we put one more item on the agenda. So everybody's here tonight. Jane, is there any public input? Hearing none. Good. 4A. CDBG Economic Development Grant Application. Ken.
So Manager Marker wanted me to update you on what's going on with our economic development CDBG application for Port. So basically we were able to submit our letter of intent on time by February 22nd. As it goes forward, I don't believe if we got the actual invitation to the full grant session yet, but hopefully that's pending. Basically, it's designed around a grant that would provide building improvements and some appliances, some new equipment. So basically, to ensure 6 full-time or full-time equivalent positions, well-paid positions, I would add, ranging from $12.50 an hour to $43 per hour. The actual grant, the company's portion, Portvere's portion would be $360,000, and the part they're requesting from CDBG is $180,000. So it looks like a good grant, and for a little industry that kind of hides in the back and does their thing without people noticing, I think they'll make some nice improvements. Anyone have any questions regarding that? The public hearing's on the 13th.
Dave.
These new jobs, is that above and beyond the deal we already have for them?
Correct. As a portion of this CDBG effort, it would be 6 new jobs, and 51% of those new jobs would have to come from a low to moderate income.
No, but we already have a deal with them for the generator that they're going to create some jobs to get a rebate.
This is over and above that.
Over and above. Okay.
The equipment they're citing now is a Class A oven dryer to dry off solvents as part of their manufacturing program. There's a vacuum furnace for their sintering process, and there's also a chromographer, which I had to look it up. Is for really, really fine laminations, in this case titanium. So they're going to make improvements to their administrative offices and expand their line inside the building, improve the older part of the building, siding and so forth. But those jobs should be over and above the generator.
Any other questions? Just to go over it one more time, Ken, from Farmer Mark.
Sure.
The grant is for $180,000,
That's correct.
and the company is putting in $360,000.
That's correct.
A little over a $500,000 project.
Nice project.
Got it. Okay. So May 13th,
This is a
we
public
have a
hearing.
public hearing on it. Okay. Any other questions? Going once, twice? Thank you, Ken. Okay, 4B, River Road issue, we'll call it. This is a 2-part discussion. Part 1, I would like it to be an informational, Dave. Just tell us what we know as we know it. Speculation can be set aside. I would like to have the narrative of the River Road discussion be driven by information this year. And that's why I called for this special meeting, to let not only the council, but anybody, residents that are on the River Road, and citizens of Caribou know what where we currently are after another failure on the road. So, and then the second part of it would be not so much with the information, but I'd like to have the council understand what our goals are, not only short-term, but what our long-term goals are, and a distinction between the two. So, for the first subject on information, Dave, oh wise one, could you tell us where we are at?
Okay, so at this point, I have been watching the River Road twice a day. I go in the morning early, I go in the evening. Last Monday, I noticed new cracks that was on the east side of the road instead of the west side where the major failure. At that point, the crack was opened up half an inch and probably had an elevation height difference between the two of about an inch. That's kind of concerning to me because just on the other side of that is where we're putting our new road from the plans that we have. I do not have an engineering degree, but I can also tell you that you can't put a new road there without doing something about that new crack. I think I explained that to you guys the last meeting we were at. So anyway, the engineering firm showed up Friday. It was myself, Dennis was there, the mayor was there, and I made it very apparent to the engineering firm that we may have, or they may have designed a road, but there was not one thing said about fixing the problem that created this. And we probably never would have thought that it would be an additional problem, but with the new cracking on the east side of the road, plus the major failure that happened in the same exact spot, we need to fix the problem rather than just build the road, because we're going to be back in trouble again. So part of the Dubois and King being there was to meet with us to see what kind of damage there was and to reassess. And they may have stayed a little bit longer on Thursday, but they definitely did a little bit more on Friday, and they came back with 4 recommendations to the council that they'd like to recommend. And I would just like to read them a little bit to you. I'll highlight them instead of reading word to word, but so the very first item they'd like to have done in May, they would like to put it out to bid for demolition, asbestos removal, and cleanup of the sites that are there, including the land that's down over the embankment, the cars and tires, anything that we can find down in that section. That's and I think that's a good idea. I never really did think it was a good idea to put it all out to bid for one contractor to do the whole thing. I honestly believe that if we put out separate contracts, one for the asbestos removal and one for the tearing down of the houses, we'll end up with a much cheaper product than one big, large contractor having to do it all. Remember, contractors are into the earthwork. They're really not into asbestos removal, and they might demo them houses, but I agree with Dubois and Quing that we should get that done on our own. I also think that I think we all understand now that with the failure, not having the problem pinpointed, this river road will not be fixed this summer. I think it's unrealistic to believe that it could be. I believe that, Tom, you had mentioned it being late in the season, unfavorable bid price, and I think you're absolutely right. For information purposes, I also think that it should be said that the new road as designed was going to start at approximately where the first mobile home lot was, but there is a failure further to the south of over 200 feet away that was never addressed. So it failed last year. I brought it to their attention. We put a patch on the riverbank side just so that we could bring the 2 pavements back up, and that's gone down again. So that's 2 years in a row that that section has failed. It just would not be worth it for us not to address that while we're doing something with it. So the number 2 recommendation that they had was to submit a scope and fee to the city to conduct the boundary survey for the 4 parcels, 52, 53, 54, and 55. And as this was previously discussed, this would be carried under the first phase of the project, and there'd be no additional money for that. So basically what they're saying is they want to put the boundaries on them parcels and stuff like that so that you guys, after the project's done, you still have your house lot to sell. And beginning in May, wet conditions, they would like to do more testing on the geotechnical side of it. And they would first like to look at the test borings that they have. Samples was done every 5 feet, I think is what I heard them say today in that phone conference meeting. They would now like to look at them as a continuous. There was one bore site that went down to about 52 feet. The rest was in the 30 to 40 range. They would like to build a model, and along with, they want to send a man up, and they want to take pictures. They want to look at the outflow of the 2 culverts that I've talked about in the past year, about the water flow. But they would like to try to build a model to see if they can come up with what caused the failure. I think they are on board now with determining that we had better find the failure before we fix anything.
Excuse me. I asked them to do that every time they were here.
I know. We all have. We all have. It's not nothing new, but I don't know if the push to get it out to bid overlooked a few things. I'm really not sure what happened. That gentleman that was here, the geologist, and you could tell he was a very intelligent man, and you know, he stood back and he was looking, saying maybe we needed to study the topos some more and maybe do this, and me being me, I just said I thought that's what we were supposed to do in the first place. But I believe that now they're going to do that, or they want to do that, or they have to do that, especially with the failures from this season as well. And the last item is at the completion of the slope stability model, they want to meet with the city to discuss their findings and options on what could be done. So without saying it, we all understand that more surveying means more money. So Dennis asked them today if they could give us a range of what they thought that additional cost could or would be. And what they really said was, so they've got 3 things. Perform a supplement site visit to try to find additional evidence of slope failure closer to the toe. The visit will include observations, measurements, photography of nearby damaged features and cross culverts. So that's the first thing they'd like to do. The second thing is they want to utilize the existing soil sample that they had from their borings. They want to look at that along with other typo stuff, you know, from around the area, and reevaluate and see if they can come up with what the failure was. If 1 and 2 resolves the issue, the range that we talked about in price, they can do number 1 and number 2 for approximately $4,000 more than what they've already told you. If they do not come up with a failure of what the failure was caused by, they'll need to go to step 3. And step 3 is, if step 1 and 2 are inclusive, they want to conduct a supplemental site investigation, including advancement of 3 or 4 soil borings and preparation of a more detailed slope model. We assume that the continuous soil, 4 sample borings, and preparation of a more detailed slope stability model will help in the aid of trying to determine what's wrong. They're talking about boring 4 more times, maybe going up on the hill, doing a boring on the hill. Just much more work involved, and if they have to go to number 3, it could be an additional $20,000 on top of the estimate that you had. But without in a nutshell, without further testing from them, we will not have a solution to the problem.
Dave?
So we could pay $28,000 to have them do what they should have done last summer. Is that what I'm understanding?
On top of the $80,000 we've already given them.
So I do not know anything about what they've been paid or haven't been paid or what the final design was. I was not part of that information. The only thing I can really comment on as far as money is we could pay an additional up to $24,000 to put our finger on and say this was the problem. Now keep in mind, because I think it's very important to understand, even if we have to pay, it could be as little as $4,000. They may look at it a different way and come up with a solution or what the failure was caused from. But it could be as much as the $4,000 for step 1 and 2, and then step 3 could be up to an additional $20,000. So that's $28,000. When they find, and if they find, which they probably will, what the actual problem is, that's also going to change the scope of work, and it's going to change the scope of the project. So it's not only going to, I mean, it's up to $24,000 for additional surveying and trying to determine what caused the failure. Once they do find it, it's going to be deep. And unless we fix that deep-rooted problem, we could have the new failure, we could have a failure with the new road set over 30 feet.
Jody?
Back, so if they go to the step 3 and they find another problem, so then the whole beginning proposal and design is pretty much out the window?
So we asked that question, and without really knowing the root cause, they feel confident that what they've done so far in the design will still hold true even after they find the problem. It just, you may have to do more work to fix the problem, but the end result, the lanes, the utility poles, the sewer lines, all of that can still stay the same. That's not stuff that we've paid for or are going to pay for that gets thrown out. What will change is if the council chooses a different option. And I'll just throw out, the road goes down 10 feet in height. That changes the scope of their work. I mean, now the plans that they've worked so hard to draw up no longer fit. That's where you'll have the wasted money in the engineering of that section of road. Keep in mind, whatever, the engineering did not include the southern side where we're going to have to do something with that. In conversations with them out there Thursday, they really thought that what they've done so far was not wasted, but they could incorporate and bring that other piece into it. So it's not all bad, with the exception of we haven't found a problem.
Joan?
I thought they found the problem with the drainage and the clay and the slurry that came through that was there last spring when that came down through, and that drainage was needed in that area, so the culverts, putting culverts or whatever. What happened to that? That doesn't fly anymore?
So that's a good question. The problem is not on top of the ground.
No, that's right.
The problem is not at the top of the ground. It is at the top of a hill. You do not put cross culverts to drain water off the top of a hill. I think they all agreed Friday that that was not the cure. The problem is down low. They're just not sure how far. One of the things, if the water was up higher, as the embankment slid down, there would be a rotational twist on any of the vegetation, the trees, any of that stuff. And there is no sign of that. Everything has just slid down and to the west. Everything has just gone down. What what makes it really hard to understand is that section now between last year sliding 5 feet and another 4 feet this year, that total is down there 9 feet. When that section of road slid down, where did the bottom side of it go? Where did it go? Because it shows no sign where it has bulged out. So they would like to send a man up on Wednesday, and he's going to put his boots on, and he's going to go down at the riverbank. He's going to go down along that whole area to see if he can locate any wet spots where it's spongy, where down there 30 feet, 40 feet, or whatever it happens to be, if they can find a pool of water that's being held in place and there's ground saturation and that just slid down into that. I don't know that they're going to find anything, but if you don't try, you'll never end up with a different story. So something has to be done. They are convinced now that there is no need to just move the road and move the utility poles because it's going to continue to slide.
And I know it was brought up to me, and I can't remember by whom or whatever, but last year when it first started, somebody said that they had talked to a contractor or whatever, and that was the first thing was maybe we should take the road down 8 feet. Do you think that might take the weight off and maybe get past whatever's causing that? Might be something that it should be looked at?
So I'd like to ask you, when they offered you 4 options, was lowering the road one of them options?
I don't think so.
Yeah, it was.
Was it?
Yeah.
And I know the sewer line is a problem there, so I don't know what could be done about that or what cannot be done. But there was also at the time, them property owners, if you dropped that road down 10 feet to alleviate all that weight, or 6 feet, or whatever it happened to be, how would you ever use them homes for dooryards? You wouldn't be able to do that. So that might have been the reason why the council did not choose that method that particular night. The city owns them 4 homes now,
Yeah.
and if they so chose to do that, but keep in mind that I don't even know that that's going to be an option. I mean, we would have to let the engineering firm do more bore samples or more testing to determine if lowering the road 8 feet could solve that problem. And then if it does, everything that has been designed to this point gets pushed to the wayside.
Dave? Are you confident with the work of these people? I mean, I'm not feeling overly confident that this crew knows what they're doing. I mean, all this stuff, walking the river, blah, blah, that should have been done last year. I mean,
I thought that stuff was done last year. I really did. Matter of fact, I thought that once they done the bore samples, that we would have all the information we needed. It turns out they either didn't go deep enough, or whoever was reading the samples really wasn't sure of the potential problems that could be within that. So if they can build a model with the information that they have, they will do number 1 and number 2 for approximately $4,000 more than what they had agreed upon. If they have to come back because there was not enough data to support the model that they're looking at, and they have to do more bore samples, it could be another potentially $20,000 on top of the 4 that they've already spent. The problem is if we're going to fix the road, we need this additional work. And that's what I'll say about it. If we're going to fix the road, we need more information.
I think if I wanted to protect the reputation of my company, I'd fix that without coming to the city for more money.
$4,000.
You may-
More than
you-
20.
Or 20.
I was under the understanding that we were going to have a problem solution as well.
He's, this really isn't, he shouldn't, he's in a tough.
I am in a
you're
tough spot.
You're not here to answer
I-
about
Financially,
what the company has done or hasn't done.
I'm not.
You've stated what the facts are very accurately to us all, as I heard them, and
I am only here tonight to try to give you some information and answer any questions that you may have. I can't defend, I can't continue to believe that they are, I'd like to believe that, I mean, they have 130 employees. Someone in that company knows what went wrong. I guess I just wanted to make sure that you had the information that came from Dubois and King. Dennis wanted to be sure that you had a range of potential money extra it could cost. I just wanted you to understand that that range is not for the repair. That range is only in diagnosing above and beyond what you've already spent. I would make my personal recommendation at this point, do not do anything with that road unless you have further testing done.
Jody, anything?
No, very informational. Kind of between a rock and a hard place. Exactly. What we do moving forward.
Cole?
No, thank you for being the messenger.
Oh, anytime.
I'm good. Thanks, Dave.
I have one more question.
I'm good for right now. I mean, we can't shoot the messenger. It's kind of something you just don't do.
So,
Your information, that's it. And that's all we can get from you, Dave.
and that's correct. I mean, if we're looking to point a finger, I don't really know that there's anyone to point the finger at other than the crew that done that. You know what I mean?
Dave? This
What Dubois and King have provided in terms of a layout for the new road, do we own that? Do we own those designs? And is that ours?
So I don't know if you've paid for them.
Well, I assume we had a contract.
I am not into the paying portion of that
No,
business.
what I'm getting at is.
If we've paid for them, they belong to us.
Right, and they could be used by a different engineering firm.
They could.
Okay.
But I still want to stress, though, that even if they were the best plans in the world, which they could very well be, they are not worth the paper they're written on unless we find the problem that has now created two failures.
I understand.
One of the things I picked up during the conversation, and I understood the new engineering gentleman. He seemed pretty reliable to me.
He did to me, too.
He was very open. He made it very clear to me he didn't know what was going on. He needed more study.
Correct.
That's how I took it.
I would agree with that statement 100%.
And the fact that nothing wrong with backing up. There's nothing wrong with stopping, reanalyzing. Let's look at this again. Absolutely nothing.
I think something that's important, and I don't mean to cut you off, but last year, the failure happened a year ago. Things were wet, the ground was wet, everything was wet. The city tried numerous ways to try to find some funding through FEMA, USDA, and all other types. By the time that Dubois and King got hired on, and they came and done their evaluations, we were into the fall time. It was not a wet time of the year. It's very, very possible that because of that dry time of the year, they didn't have a true sense of what happened in the spring. The good thing at this point is we're not spinning our wheels going 100 miles an hour and covering 5 miles an hour with the ground. We know that it's there. We know it's the wet time, and if the council chooses to keep them on, even at the additional cost, I feel as though they will find something.
I also walked away with the impression from this new, what was his name, do you remember? The new guy,
Darren, yeah.
Darren?
Yeah.
I also got the impression from Darren is, he spoke a lingo that I liked. If damage is done or there's a problem within the first 8 feet of the surface, we can deal with it pretty reasonably. Once you go below 8 feet and in increments below, it starts to get cost prohibitive.
It
To
is
the
expensive.
point when you get down to 10 or 12, if we find the problem within 10 to 12 feet down deep, we don't know, but if it was down that deep, it almost becomes, I can't remember the exact terminology, the financial part of it is prohibitive of small communities to be able to really fix something, and for all we know, it could be even deeper. That's the reason for the testing, the additional testing, is to find out where the problem is. Would I be wrong in saying then we could spend 4,000, another 20,000, and if it were to come back, you guys got a problem and it's 20 feet deep.
What are we going to do?
You got to do something totally different here.
That's right. So,
They could come back and say, yeah, good news, it's only within the first 6 feet. We can clean this right up.
right. I don't believe they're going to find the problem 6, 8, 10 feet deep. I think they're going to find the problem much deeper than that. That's just my own personal opinion. And you are correct in your assumption of what he was talking about. And my takeaway was most problems that they deal with for municipalities are no deeper than 8 feet. 6 to 8 feet was the most common area where municipalities was working with road failures. And he also said, the deeper you go, the more expensive the fix. And they didn't even talk about what the potential fix could be, because there's not much need to talk about what we're going to do if we don't know what is the problem. I have confidence that that gentleman, he was just brought into that project because they've realized now they have a serious problem that they didn't address properly the first time. I think they've got more help involved. And just between you and I, when we hired Dubois and King, they had an office here in Caribou. It was easy for someone to go over and do quick runs for them. Now there's not that office here, and it's a little bit harder for them to, make them daily runs or weekly runs. And so I think they will make better use of their time when they're here. But it's still going to come down to there will need to be additional money spent for putting the finger on the spot of where the failure was.
Any other questions for Dave, Tom?
Last week I took a ride out there real quick and saw your guys putting dirt on the road. Was that just to see if it was actually moving on that side, or what was that all about?
No, I felt so bad about the citizens traveling out there with all the water and the mud from the gravel. I put down some millings. I'm going back tomorrow to go, and for half of it, it's worked real well. The last half of it, the potholes are just phenomenal. So we're going to go out again tomorrow. It's product that we've had.
So you were just trying to smooth it?
Just trying to smooth out for the travel. There was no structural. There was no gain for nothing. It was just to get them out of the mud.
Okay.
I was trying to get the cars out of the mud.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Dave?
Just a comment.
Oh, comment.
I think Dubois and King should do 1 and 2 on their dime, and then if they need more borings to come talk to us. That's my personal opinion.
Okay, Joe?
Just one other quick question. One of the other options was to go along behind there by the rail bed. I think that was option number one, maybe something like that.
Yeah, I don't remember what the options were, but
But it was one that would follow the rail bed,
Yeah.
so that it would go behind. Worst case scenario, would that still be an option? Or if it's down so far, and you may not know the answer to this, I'm just asking, if it's down like so far, would that follow through like that? So that it would be.
I think the engineers would tell you that the further east you go, the better, or the further you're getting away from that failure,
Right.
you could have many, many years. I mean, it's not breaking up into that field. The part that bothers me a little bit is where the very first failure is, and if you happen to go out, I've got a speed limit sign that says, pass at your own risk, 20 miles an hour. Just shortly after that, if you look on the western side, the river side, you can see where there's a nice black patch, and you can see the separation by putting her 2 inches again. That was smooth after the first failure. So that, whatever we decide to do, that section of road is going to have to be incorporated into that. But that would be right in the area, if the road was lowered, the road would start to probably be lowered in that area, somewhere there. And I don't even know that lowering the road is the option, or, you know what I mean, is a fix. I would say, let's not throw the baby out with the bathwater at this point. Let's let Dubois and King find the problem, and then they will give you new options. It could very well be, it's down there so deep, you can't do nothing with it. Or it's gonna be so expensive that you won't fix it. I don't know what the answers are gonna be. But if we let them do the further exploration, they will come up with other options to present to you.
I think all options are on the table from before until we find it's like having a gauge with no numbers on it. It's got a great looking needle, but what's it tell you? So we're going to take up the formal approval to continue boring and all this. If we have to have a special council meeting next Monday, we can do that so we can vote. But we'll have to see what these 4 proposals they gave you. I'd like to have them, if you could please tell Dennis, do it in a formal presentation to the council via email would be nice. Just to let us know what you said tonight in writing.
So I did make copies of the email, if you guys would like copies of them for tonight.
We can, but would we still relay the message to Dennis?
Sure.
We would like to have something, the change should flow through our city manager.
Oh, absolutely.
I have no problem with you passing those out tonight for us to browse, but we'll do it that way.
If,
Excuse me, but you want the 4 original proposals?
No.
no, the
What he
proposals that
he just read.
that they talked about tonight.
And I'd like a copy of those too.
It's 4.
You need me to make copies, Dave?
No, I think I may have enough. So page 1, they're just talking to the manager in the email. And then on page 2 is their 4 proposals that they think we could do now. The last page was after our conversation with Dubois and King this afternoon. That's where they came with the range of potential costs for the additional testing of the ground. That's on the very last page.
Go ahead.
I just, do you think you're gonna be able to keep the road open through the winter? Push it over a little bit if the houses come down?
So I have seen the movement right from the first step. I can tell you there's been no movement in the past week. With all the rain that we had Saturday night, I went out Sunday morning expecting to see a little bit more. I didn't see any more.
No, I haven't either.
I still don't feel as though that we have to close the road. If at any time the council chooses to do so, I will. I don't believe that the traveling traffic is in any danger, with the exception of hitting a barricade and going over the bank, but, you know, we do have it posted at 20 mile an hour. I mean, things can happen, you know?
You gotta go so slow anyway.
Yeah,
Because the
but-
potholes are so
right,
bad right now, you
right.
can't go in. But do you think like after they do the demolition and stuff, it'd be able to go a little bit over there through the winter so it can,
So
you don't know yet probably.
the one thing that is the hurdle in knowing that we're not going to do this project this summer,
Right.
if the council chooses to go ahead and abate them homes and tear them down in preparation for something, to be honest with you, the houses ought to come down. The 4-year home with no heat, the mold in that house now is unbelievable. It's everywhere. So we know we're not saving the homes for anybody. Whether we go out to bid now or we let the contractor do it next year, if we decide to fix the roads, the homes should come down. So I do recommend, I agree with the recommendation of Dubois and Quing. I think it would be a good idea to pick up the debris and get that picked up that's on the Chamba or Mrs., I don't know how to, Chonka. Okay. Okay, so it would be a good idea to clean that messes up as well. And then if we do go forward, go out to bid during the winter with a new design, we've pinpointed the problem, all that debris is not there anymore. It would be just a simple fix. We don't want to leave that like that, or I wouldn't recommend that we do. Bring the homes down, get the asbestos out first, but the one utility pole, if Emera would move that so that we could have a little bit of room to plow, we could get a little bit further away from the failed area. And as long as somebody is watching that,
Oh, you know we all are.
yeah, so, I mean, you know, it's not just me. I mean, you know, there's others watching it. But I haven't seen anything dangerous, you know, with the exception of falling off the hole. But we opened it last summer for them to travel through there for a while, and we do have the Jersey barriers. Them were on loan from the DOT. We may have to bring them back at some point. We may have to purchase, I mean, another story at another time.
Yeah. Two different subjects here, Dave, in my opinion. The long-range fix
Yeah,
and the short-term fix. Short-term fix is how do we keep that road open for whatever length of time it takes to figure out what the fix is.
sure.
Could you, I ask you for a favor, could you given us, at next time we meet, would you have an opportunity to tell us what it would cost to fill that hole back in again? Go do the Kazuntas
Yeah.
and the division, and just give us a rough guess of what it would take, and then move the barriers, just like you did this winter. I'd be just curious, as an option of keeping it open for the short-term fix. This engineering company has nothing to do with our dilemma of the short-term fix,
Sure.
right?
Right.
Their job is to figure out the long-term fix.
So I would like to make a suggestion. Instead of filling the hole back again, I would be more in favor of Emera moving 1 or 2 poles out of our way, and let's make the road a little wider on the west side. Let's get the pole out of the way. That's the obstacle that we're having a hard time to get around. We put a barrier in front of it so that cars wouldn't hit it straight on. If that pole could get moved, which I believe Emera would do for us, we could put another $2,000 worth of material down, which is already going to move the road over 10 feet. I feel comfortable in saying that we could probably survive another full season like that, which could get us into construction for the following year.
And I appreciate your suggestion. Can I also get my request answered, and could you just tell us what it would cost to fill it in?
Sure, yeah,
just-
I will. What I'll do is,
just-
I'll do a little worksheet up this way, Plan A and Plan B, for an option.
You can, and I'm sure, and to be perfectly frank, Dave, there could be 4 or 5 more options coming at you.
Yeah.
Before we decide
Oh,
what
sure.
the short-term fix will be, we just want to have them on the table so we can look at them. That's the point. I will say that I don't think the council, in my personal opinion, the council should get involved, other than, Mr. Martin makes a good point, but once that part's all decided, the long-term fix is up to an engineer to figure out, not the,
It's not us.
not us. That's it. But I'm going to also say, I don't know if it's the engineers to get involved with telling us what the short-term fix is. Just to let you know, I understand about the demolition of the buildings, but maybe their time schedule, I'd like to discuss that. It's not in stone that we have to start doing things right off.
I think the engineering firm would never agree to a short-term fix. They're just not going to do it. The fix is the fix, and it happens to be for a long term. They're not going to tell you that it's okay to go spread 500 yards of material and just move that road over. I can tell you that.
Right.
They are not going to put their reputation on the line for a temporary fix for the city of Caribou. They want to give you a solution that will fix the problem. This first round didn't happen to be that because I think they underestimated the problem.
But River Road residents will want a short-term fix.
Oh, I am sure of it.
Okay, and that's
Yep.
what's important right now.
Yep.
For the immediate issue.
If the road does not get any worse than what it is,
Right.
we have to do nothing. The road is open. It is passable. It is not as wide as it was from when we first put the gravel in, because keep in mind, we put the gravel in the hole, we put the Jersey barriers on the gravel. Now we have picked them up from the gravel and we've moved them to the hot top. You've lost at least 3 feet of travel lane that used to be there. It is narrower now than it was a month ago.
Right.
With the exception of the snowbanks, but
Right.
but the jerseys were on the gravel, and I purposely put them on the gravel for the reason of if the gravel started to move, I would see movement in the jerseys, and that's exactly what happened. And I think it's pretty important too that it took almost a week from the start of the failure to where we are now, which is exactly what it was a year ago. Once we spotted the failure, a week later is where it leveled off.
A year today.
Is it?
Yeah.
Gonna have anniversary parties?
Yeah,
by the
we
time
should.
Remember we used to have the bridge party? Do you remember those?
A bridge party?
Remember we used to have a party on the bridge? They were fixing the Fort Fairfield Bridge
Oh,
every year.
Yes, yes, yes. Now we need a River Road party.
Yeah, now we need a River Road party. Okay. Would this be imposing too much? You've already mentioned the failure 200 yards to the south.
Yes.
I'm looking to the north. I see a few spots up there. The moral of the story is this. Is there a way that you can assess the whole road?
Oh, my goodness.
Well, we have a barn. We're fixing up one corner of the barn.
Yeah.
We still have 3 more corners that we got to fix on that barn. I'm just saying,
So I,
down the road, not immediate, but within a month or so, can we have an assessment of that road?
so I drove down this morning purposely 15 miles an hour to look at some of the other stuff. The next spot that is the worst, in my opinion, is lot 347. And basically what that is, it's a little waterway that comes down through the woods. It comes into a culvert that crosses the road. And back some time ago, I'll tell you, 10 years ago, that little culvert become plugged on the inlet side with debris that washed down through the woods. And the water went up over the road and it washed out the embankment. And when we got there, 3 guardrail posts was hanging right in the air. From where the culvert, are you familiar, Mark, with where I'm talking about?
That's exactly where I'm,
Yeah.
there's 2 culverts that are completely washed out down there.
Yeah, I
On
mean,
the
it's
north
hanging.
side.
It's hanging right in the air.
Yeah.
If you went for an engineering